my name's Jerimie. Really glad to be here today. This is actually one of my favorite places always to come to. When I first started presenting, some of my first speaking engagements were actually held in this building, and it's also where I met a very dear friend of mine who used to teach at UAB. Her name was Dr. Jerimie. Actually met her at this very place back in the early 2000s, and after our first initial meeting, we started. She started having me come to her classes, and I would present to her students, doing my presentation called Autism from a Personal Perspective, and kind of what I'm going to talk to you about today is just kind of how I lived with autism and overcame autism through early diagnosing and early intervention, and how that would actually play out and lead to what's been a very successful life since then. To make a long story short, I was initially diagnosed with early childhood autism at the age of 18 months. My parents were in the military at the time, and I was actually diagnosed by an army psychiatrist, of all folks. And this was also, back in the mid to late 70s when autism was still kind of virtually unknown at the time. But my first initial symptoms with autism began with having no speech, no type of verbal communication. There was the hand flapping, and I would rock a lot, especially whenever I listened to music. I had a lot of noise, sound sensitivity problems. I was particularly terrified of power tools, especially someone's circular saw or drill, because of just the shrilling of sound that they give off. I was very routine oriented, and still sometimes kind of that way today. I would become upset if somebody had been in my room and rearranged stuff around and whatnot. But I've also been a very organized person. I like schedules. Going to Office Depot is kind of like going to Toyland for me because of all the gadgetry that you can find there. And, that's some of the negatives of autism. Now I'm going to talk to you for a minute about some of the positives of autism from my perspective. Not long after my diagnosis, I really started to develop a really keen interest in drawing, art, and music. One of the things I really started getting into was drawing anything that was mechanical, structural, or architectural related, because it had just so much detail. I really got into aviation very early on in my childhood, and one of the things that really came out of that with my love for the arts is photography, and one of the things I love to do in photography is I love to do aviation photography, but I also do a lot of scenery, nature type photography. But the book that's going around is a book that I made a couple of years ago called The Dream of Flight, and it really just kind of boasts of some of my best aviation photography that I've done the last 6 or 7 years, and some of it is from where I've done some plane spotting trips, and the definition of plane spotting is where I take a trip to an airport that I'm interested in, and we'll spend a weekend watching and photographing the planes. I even go to our airport sometimes and do photography shoots there. Um, as my love for music started out, I like to play the drums. That's why you see me with the drum set when I was 6. And I really got into classic rock a lot because my parents were children of the 60s and really gave me a good exposure to a lot of the 60s, 70s music, and really took a real love. And plus, I'm an 80s child, so I love me some 80s hair bands. And I'm actually going to see Guns N' Roses and the Cult next month in Atlanta. Yeah, that's just one of several concerts I love to go to. But I developed a really vast knowledge of music, especially in the classic rock genre. I also was a DJ for 10 years. That's when I started. That's what I used to do before I got into photography. But one of the things I really have kind of a good talent at, and I've been challenged in it a time or two, is playing Name That Tune. I was at a party one time where someone actually was just pulling up YouTube videos of classic rock and was just seeing how long it took them to stump me. But those are some of the positives of autism. I look at my autism a lot as a blessing in disguise, where it can take something away, but it can also give you something back. And has anybody here seen the movie Rain Man? Mm-hmm. If you noticed how he just could just riddle off just random facts about things, that's what I can still do to this day, even at the age of 42. I can still do that as well as I was doing it when I was 5. This is a really favorite story of mine that I like to share, and it's really a pioneering example of why I really feel that early intervention is really crucial in diagnosing autism, or when autism has been diagnosed, that you really need to kind of get on the stick with things, or you're going to really lose some really important opportunities in that child's first 5-7 years of life. When I was initially diagnosed, we came back to Alabama after living in Jerimie, which is where we were stationed at the time, and we came to stay in Anniston with my grandmother. And while we were living there, until we kind of knew where we were going, my grandma was just distraught over the fact that I wasn't talking yet, and so she got it in her head, she got it in her heart that I was going to speak. And so every night when she would put me in bed, she would say mama, say mama. And she would do that persistently until one night I looked back at my grandmother and said mama for the first time. And when I did start to talk, it was very echolalic at first. I just would repeat just kind of whatever I heard through whatever family conversations or what I might have heard on the TV or the radio, whatnot. And but that's why this all happened at the age of 3. That was what I think is one of the first breakthroughs, and why I really feel like early intervention is so important. When we finally found a place where I could go to get treatment and intervention, we moved to North Carolina so that I could be enrolled in the TEACH program, because Anybody here familiar with the TEACH program? You got one? Well, this program was established in 1972, and I came to them in 1977. And again, to make a very long story short, I went through 2.5 years of just real intensive intervention and therapy, and they worked with me on improving my language, communication, and social skills. And they basically took me from having none of those skills to having some or more by the time I reached the age of 5. And one example that I'll go ahead and share real quick, if you have seen the photo, is TEACH really believed in trying to like engage my interest, and they really believed in getting my family involved with me, and they also really believed that the home was a better environment to learn in rather than being sent away to an institution, which in those times, this was the 70s, that was kind of the typical norm. Was in fact one of the first psychiatrists that initially diagnosed me told my mom that chances are that's probably what was going to happen, and whatnot, and so, but TEACH just pretty much, kind of went away from all of the kind of the typical traditions and used just a whole different. A lot of it was like punishment. I'm sorry. A lot of it was like praise. If you got something right, then I might get a cookie. But if I had to get it right in order to get the cookie, one of the examples. But by engaging my interest in the things that I really enjoyed, that's how I began to even become more open, socially to others. And I really credit TEACH a lot for a lot of that, for a lot of these approaches that they did with me. After leaving TEACH, it was recommended that I be put into special ed classes when I got ready to enroll in elementary school and high school. And although I was in special ed most of my life, I felt like I did progress and really did well, especially when I got into private school. From there, I was mainstreamed a lot. I got to participate in regular classes. I even participated in sports and was on the drama team, and I took art. And it was actually being on the drama team at my school that I really kind of that's where I kind of found my inspirations to become a motivational speaker like I do today. And I played basketball from junior varsity basketball. This is actually me playing basketball with my teammates. Did that for 3 years, and then became the team manager until I graduated. And what I really enjoyed the most about those experiences was it really grew my self-esteem, and it really grew my independence, and it really made for a good social support system that would just be invaluable. And in fact, when I graduated high school, I got kind of depressed for about a year and a half, because I didn't have that social support anymore that I once had that I really loved. When I graduated high school, I got involved with vocational rehab services, and they sent me to the Alabama School for the Deaf and Blind, because I'm also visually impaired, along with people on the spectrum. Autism can coexist with other disabilities, and I went to school there for about a year and a half to study computer courses, and I took some office management courses there. and that led me to eventually moving to Birmingham, um, getting my first job and moving out on my own. And when I first moved out on my own, of course I rented apartments and whatnot, and I had some people tell me that before that, that I would probably end up in a group home, or that moving to Birmingham was a bad idea, but I chose to ignore all of that because I wanted to be independent. And one of the big steps I took in that example of being independent was buying my first home. And this is actually my first house, which is only a few blocks from here. I actually live in walking distance to here. And whatnot. But I share this because, there's still, sad to say, there's still a lot of people with disabilities who don't always get this opportunity to live the American dream. But yeah, this is what we strive for every day, is to live that dream. I've been gainfully employed with the Alabama Department of Rehab Services as an office manager for coming up 20 years from October. And this is what I do. This is my front desk that I manage. And it was actually when I started working with the agency that I started to kind of talk about my experiences with autism for the first time. For the longest time, I really didn't like to talk about it much, and I actually really never knew much about my autism until I accidentally found this big thick folder in the attic one day that had all the documents and test reviews from my time to teach, and that was really where I first made the first connection with myself back then. And so from that point on, I just started wanting to learn more and more. But it wasn't until my department was putting on a workshop one time where someone was going to be doing like an autism one-on-one course, and I offered to come and be like a co-presenter. And the person that was doing that just jumped at that opportunity. And that's where I did my very first autism presentation. I've had a wonderful life, and I wouldn't change a thing. If I could go back and do it over again, I would. The last 15 years have been just really special. I've been very active in the autism community on several fronts. Besides being a motivational speaker, I have served on some boards in the autism community. One of the boards I got to serve in that I'm really most proud of was I just finished an 8-year stint with the Alabama Interagency Autism Council, which was founded by Senator Cameron Ward. And actually, me and Senator Ward were one of the founders of the council. I was part of the first council members that were elected to serve, and so that was a really exciting opportunity. And I know Robin from serving I serve on a consumer advisory council meeting that gets together actually here a couple times, 2 or 3 times a year, and so I've been doing that. So I would just like to kind of wrap up with saying that, got yourself a dream, work hard, believe in yourself, because I know dreams do come true. And what I'd like to do now is kind of open it up for some questions. Feel free to pick my brain if you want. I think I managed to get all that in within the hour.
You still play drums?
I do. Oh, yes. In fact, my father is also a drummer, and he actually still, even at the age of 64, still plays in a band. And the band is called Geezer. And yeah, it's basically the band started out as him and two other guys that were military buddies, and they're all like over 50, and they just play good old, 60s, 70s, Vietnam War protest rock and roll music. The motto of the band is not young, not dead, just somewhere in between.
I was wondering, with your drumming too, you said you used to really hate loud sounds though, so did you have to kind of get used to the drums, or that sound never happened?
That actually never bothered me much.
Okay. More like the shrill deep sound.
Yeah.
Alright.
Well, you're not the first one to ask me that.
You mentioned that transitioning out of high school was kind of hard. Were there any activities that made that transition, or anything that you got involved in that really helped you through transitioning from high school out?
When I got sent to Talladega, and I went to the school for the deaf and blind. Actually, I didn't go to the Alabama School for the Deaf and Blind itself. They actually have a trade school, if you will, that's called E.H. Gentry Technical Facility. And when I was there at that time, they had like trades that you could take.
Okay.
One was like computers and office management, and they had like auto mechanics, vending refurbishment and whatnot, stuff like that. So yeah, I was able to kind of get some of that structure back. And then, of course, moving to Birmingham and finding like a good church to join also has helped some too. I actually attend South Highlands Presbyterian Church right around the corner.
What kind of cameras do you use to take these shots?
I use a couple of Nikon camera kits. Yeah, if you got to the picture where I've got the really big telephoto lens, that is actually a lens that I would rent sometime, but I'm happy to report I became the proud owner of that lens now. After coming across a really great deal online.
So you would say it's pretty easy to use for someone who's visually impaired?
Oh, definitely. And my best friend, bless his heart, of 30 years, actually has an old running joke. For someone that can see worth a darn, he can take a darn good picture. But I actually see better through the camera than I do with my own, with what my glasses can give me.
Where is your favorite airplane you've gone with?
I would have to say the Boeing 747 has always been my favorite aircraft. I just like the size, and it's just that aircraft just has a lot of history behind it. One of the reasons why I love to fly and love airplanes is because for me it's independence. It always brings about independence. And I am still one of those people, despite all the security, provisions that we have since 9/11. I still relish the thrill of, going to the airport and waiting to board. And when they call boarding, I'm the first one that beelines to the jetway. I always make sure I have a window seat and one thing I love about Expedia when I book on like Delta's website is they tell you the type of aircraft that you're going to get flying on, and being I know enough about some of the planes, especially I'm a huge fan of Delta. That's who I like to fly a lot when I do fly. I wouldn't lie to you, if I'm booked on like another airline and I see a Delta plane pull up, I want on that plane. But if I know I'm getting on a Boeing 737, I will go to the seat map that's usually available on the travel website, and I will know right away, where I want to sit, and what part of the aircraft that I want to sit in, if it's available.
How many times have you flown?
Oh, 30 years and some change. Pretty much since I was high as this table. But the first time I flew alone, I was 8.
Braver than me.
That really actually comes to a good piggyback on that question, and that's why I love how it really grew my independence like you did. My parents divorced when I was 8, and my dad was still serving in the military at that time, and so he was getting stationed somewhere like every couple of years. I mean, he was having to move somewhere, and so the way that Dad and I would see each other was he would send me plane tickets every summer, and then we'd rotate the holidays. And so I was taking a plane trip at least once, if not twice a year. That's how me and Delta became really good friends. Yeah. And that's what I love about that experience. I mean, I really feel like that's what has made me the world traveler that I've become today. And I have been to some great places. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to Ireland. I've been out to San Francisco. I'm going out to Las Vegas for a few days in November to attend an air show and go see the Grand Canyon, which has been something I've been wanting to get off the photography bucket list.
I have a question.
Sure.
What advice do you have for us as clinicians that are working and supporting and trying to care for these families that are totally diagnosed?
Like they try to follow some of the TEACH models. What I really love so much about the TEACH program and the memories that I have from there was how they really just made it a positive experience from start to finish. And back in the 70s and before, there was, back then they used to use things like shock and shoot water in your face or soon. And I'm sad to say, a couple of those things did happen to me before we left to go to North Carolina to start using TEACH. I've had my legs set on, and I've had water shot in my face a few times, but unfortunately, that was the time back then. So just always keep it positive. If the child's got a particular interest, try to engage that interest as much as you can. That will always help. It helped with me.
Is there a time where somebody just gave you really terrible advice, and what was it?
I got a good one on that one. And I'm sad to say it happened just a few years ago at a disability conference where I was presenting. When I actually was getting to the part of my presentation where I was talking about where someone would shoot water in my face to try to get me to do something. Well, during the Q&A section of the presentation, I actually had a lady in the room who was probably maybe mid-50s, and she tried to, in front of me and in front of 30 others, tried to justify that, that was a good thing, that was a good thing at that time. I mean, just sat there and tried to justify it. It was like when she asked me something like, well, why do you think that was wrong? And I was just wrong, man. And finally, at one point, I got so frustrated with her, I was like, well, I turned around and said, will somebody run down to the janitor's closet and go get me some Windex, and we'll see how, that I can shoot you with, we'll see how you feel in a minute. Yeah. So, that's probably my only incident of probably where someone gave me terrible advice there. 2.5 years. There from 1977 until about 1980. And even though I really enjoyed the time there, I really missed my grandmother a lot. When we left Alabama to move to North Carolina before that, and I will not lie to you, during that whole time, all I thought about was coming back to Alabama and seeing, my grandmother again. And I mean, now she would come and visit us on the holidays and whatnot. And in fact, when she was still alive, when I first talked to her about that, she actually did tell me. She said, "Yeah, you used to look so lost when you were little." And so the whole time we lived in North Carolina, all I thought about was coming back home. Because when we came back here from Europe, after that's where I really thought that we were going to live, and that's where we were going to stay. And when that didn't happen, and I don't know how I handled it, but I was actually kind of distraught about it all the time. And one of the things that my mom did with me a lot to prepare, like for certain events that were going to happen, was she drew me pictures of events. And when we got ready to move back to Alabama, she actually brought me to the living room and actually drew me some pictures of us actually getting ready to move. And it was like pictures of the movers coming to our house, coming to get our things to take back. But the magic words were, we're going back home to Grandma's house. And I was and one of the songs that I really like to listen to that really just gives a really good event, really relates to that, is Phil Collins had an album out when I was a kid. It was called No Jacket Required, and it had a song on there called Take Me Home. And it was actually a song that he wrote about people who are institutionalized and really don't have much of a voice in what's going on with their life, or have control over that situation, if you will, and whatnot. And so every time when I hear that song, I always think about my time in North Carolina and when we got ready to come back to Alabama, because the chorus of the song says, "Take me home because I don't remember." And when we were living in North Carolina, I was afraid I was going to forget, or that Grandma would forget. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing your book.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great photos.
I do have cards, and I do have a website that you can actually go look at my photography, and I'll pass those in as we wrap up here and stuff. I also have a YouTube page on my card, and I actually do have a speaking engagement that I did at the Teach Center that I did back in 2007. That's on that YouTube. That's on my YouTube page, and I'm also going to be putting this presentation on my YouTube page too. When I became a motivational speaker 15 years ago, I made a promise to myself that I would someday go back to North Carolina to one of their conferences at the Teach Center and be a presenter. And I'm happy to say, after 7 years of sending them portfolios and call for presentation letters and just basically being a pest, I finally got to go back to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and be a presenter at their annual conference in 2007. And that was probably one of the most emotional presentations that I ever had to do, but it was one that I was really glad to have finally got to do, because I really wanted to go back and just show them what life has been after my time there, and I kind of have a unique situation with them. When I came to the program, the Teach Center was still kind of in its infancy, if you will. It was established in 1972, and I came to them in '77. So, I mean, it was still barely 6 years old, and at that time, they were nobody really knew that it was going to be a one center, to have some unique things that you just can't get at another facility. The Teach Center is now housed in various metropolitan areas of North Carolina now. When you go to any major city in North Carolina, like Charlotte or Fayetteville or Raleigh, there's a center in every one of those major metropolitan areas now. When I went there was only one, and you had to go to the hospital at UNC to get there. So that's just pretty good example. I would probably qualify now as one of their probably maybe one of the oldest that went through the program. Anybody? You?
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank y'all. Get some cards, I'll pass around. There you go. One side's got my YouTube link, and then the other side's got my photography website.
Thank you very much again.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, hope we can do this again sometime.
Wow. What a win.